Have you ever wondered what the lights on the runway actually mean? Well, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the channel where today we're going to be talking about the lights on an active runway. AGL systems, or Aeronautical Ground Lighting systems, play an imperative part in the operation of an airport, of an airfield, because they tell pilots, people on the ground, everyone involved in the operation different things. Different lights, different colours, different positions all mean something different and all for a very good purpose. So today we're going to focus in particular on an active runway and what the lights actually mean. So not all runways have to have exactly the same lighting depending on the category of ILS approach they might offer or might not offer, and many other things. But if they do have the particular light that I'm going to talk about, then they'll all be set up in the same way and mean the same things. So I shot this video on a runway inspection 2 nights ago, and I thought although there's the light trails from it being a slow shutter speed because it was dark, you can still see the colours and the positions. So I thought it would be perfect to break it down and be able to show you what all the different lights that I encountered on that runway inspection actually meant. So keeping it strictly runway related, so to speak, the first light that I encountered is the stop bar. Now this is a row of red lights, solid red lights that have a direction control on them, so they only face towards the person approaching the hold point. So you won't see them if you're coming off the runway. And that is, do not cross under any circumstances. You cannot go past that point. Even if I have air traffic control on the radio clearing me to pass the hold point and onto the runway, if those red stop bar lights are still illuminated, even if I've been cleared to enter the runway, I cannot cross that. I have to wait until they've been turned off. That is what that means, and that is there purely to safeguard the runway, to stop runway incursions, to stop things that shouldn't be going past that hold point from crossing and indicating that is where you can't cross. Next to those stop bars, you have either side what are called runway guard lights, or wigwags as they're known as slang. And these are alternating orange lights on either side of the hold point, or either side of the taxiway surface, should I say. And they, again, are another indication of where that hold point is. Entering the runway begins. You can't cross them unless you've been given permission. So once I then got cleared onto the runway, you can see the stop bar gets turned off and I cross it. And the first thing you'll see happen is some alternating green and orange lights come on. And these are lead on, lead off lights. So what they do is they are visible from both directions and they show where the taxiway centre line is leading on and off a runway basically. And they will guide you onto the runway in low visibility and guide you off as well. So you can stay, particularly from an aircraft point of view, you can stay bang on the centre line, and you know, because at night you can't see those taxiways, they just disappear into the darkness, so they give you the routing that you need to follow. And the reason they are orange and green at that point is because you're still within the runway strip. Once you exit the runway strip area, then they just become the standard solid green light that you've probably heard of. If you want me to do videos about runway strips and all the technicalities of an aerodrome, let me know, stick a comment down below, and I will certainly get to that. I'll do that. I will. Yes, so anyway, the next one we're going to look at is the edge lights, runway edge lights. And they are what they say on the tin. They are lights that indicate the edge of the runway. Now, these are predominantly white, just plain white, steady lights that go either side of the runway to obviously indicate the edge of said runway. Now, they do change colour. As you're going down the runway, as you'll see here, what happens is they then turn to yellow or orange, an orangey yellow. I think it's described as yellow, but they actually look orange. And what that indicates when those edge lights turn from white to yellow is you are 600 metres away from the end of the runway. So this, again, all of these lighting systems are all geared around safety, all geared around visual cues, because if you've got fog and the visibility's 200 metres, you cannot see where the end of the runway is. So just in your peripheral vision, when you see those edge lights start to change, you know that you've only got 600 metres of runway left. So it's a great visual cue. The only other time that a runway edge light will be a different colour is if there's a displaced threshold on the runway, in which case they will be red edge lights only in the direction of landing aircraft, if that makes sense. So if the threshold has been displaced, they're red because it's not a usable surface to land on, therefore it's not an edge of the runway, if that makes sense, but it's the edge of the surface. Does that make sense? I think so. Yeah, but in this video we don't have those, so you just have to use your imagination. The other glaringly obvious light in this video is the centerline light. Now these aren't actually standard on a lot of runways, a lot of big runways as well. They are often fitted just as an addition if they're not required. Some runways they will be required. And they are, what again, like the edge lights, they are what they say on the tin. They indicate the centre line. They go down the middle of the runway surface, showing you exactly where the centre is. And these again are predominantly just white steady lights, like the edge light. So when you're setting off down the runway, you'll have, in theory, a sea of white light. You've got your white edge lights and your white centre line lights. And like the edge lights, the centerline lights also change colour. Now what happens is when you get to 900 metres from the end, they will start alternating between a single white, single red, single white, single red. But they're just single lights alternating, and that's indicating the start of 900 metres from the end of the runway. With all of these lights, they're all directional, so each light fitting has two lights in it. So one that is red, if I was going down the runway this way and I hit the 900 metres and I see the first red, so this side of the light is red, but the other side is white, because it's only the start of the runway if you were coming the other direction. So it's all very simple but very, very effective and clever. Anyway, I digress. So the centerline lights have changed at 900 metres to alternating red and white. And then when you get to 300 metres from the end of the runway, they go into a solid red line of lights. So no whites, just red centerline lights. And that is basically saying you've got 300 metres left. If you're not stopping, you really need to get in the air, because you haven't got long left. And it also helps vehicles out in the dark and the fog as well, because it gives you a good judge of how far down the runway you are when you can't see anything else. Once you get to the end of the runway, you'll then have effectively a bit like a stop bar principle, a row of red stop end lights going across the threshold, again facing towards the approaching traffic. And again, that indicates the end of the runway. That is it. You've used up all of the runway. That is the end of it. Boom, big red stop, effectively. And on the other side of those stop lights, if you were facing the other way, you'll see threshold lights, which is just a big row of green lights, solid green lights, which indicate the start of the threshold, the start of the runway available for landing. So they tend to stretch the full width of the runway, and sometimes I think they're called wing bars or something like that, where they actually extend wider than the runway, again, just to enhance visibility of where the runway actually starts. And last but not least, the final light we're going to cover today are the PAPIs, the Precision Approach Path Indicators. And these are 4 lights that sit next to the aiming point on the runway. When you're on the ground, they're indicating just 4 red. They just look like 4 red lights. But the idea is that they show, just as a visual aid to pilots, that they are on the perfect glide path to land on the runway at the right point. So if they're too high, all they'll see is white lights. So the lights that we see as red on the ground from the sky, if they're too high, will appear white. And then if they are just a bit too high, then they'll see 3 white, 1 red. If they're on the perfect approach path, they will see 2 white, 2 red. If they're a little bit too low, they'll see 3 red, 1 white. And if they're way too low, 4 red, you're dead. So yeah, it's a last minute visual check for pilots out the window, just to make sure that they are following the correct descent profile to land perfectly on the aiming point of the runway. So they are an invaluable tool. Always form such an important part of any kind of aerodrome lighting check, that all 4 are operating as they should be. So yeah, if you would like me to go into more detail about anything that I've mentioned, or any more airport or aerodrome facts and information about why things are the way they are, please do stick a comment down below. If you like this video, like it, share it with everyone far and wide. Make sure you're subscribed. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next one.